morning. Oh, I need my microphone. That would probably be helpful. Good morning. It's been one of those mornings. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you are. We are here. I'm JP. That's Christos. This is the 425 show, an identity show that's not always just about identity. We got some fun stuff today. Glad everybody's here. We got some good community stuff. I got some good answers to some community questions that we got this week. I know you've got some too, Christos. And then we have an extra special guest who's coming in a little bit too.
We do.
We do.
Wait a minute. Did you keep that as a surprise for me? Because I didn't know. You got a guest?
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, in a roundabout way, yeah. We'll find out. You'll find out soon enough. So, how are you this morning?
I am good. Yeah. I had a bit of a painful day yesterday where I managed to trap my nerve on my back and, upper back, neck. And I was walking around like Robocop for most of the day. And it was my day off. You know, it's like, you decided to take a day off. I will punish you for that. Boom. So that was it. I'm feeling better this morning. So we're all good. It's Friday.
That's cool.
March day 145th, I think. Captain's log. And we're here to do another show on the 45 show, which it's super exciting. I think we have some interesting stuff to do today. We have community announcements, we have some shout outs, we have news, we have guests, and we have some code, hopefully, in between all these things. And some technical answers. Yeah, I mean, it's nice, man. It's been a long week, by the way.
It has been. I fixed my fridge yesterday.
Yes. Yeah, because your son pulled the plug on that one or something, right?
Well, so he, my 2-year-old hit the buttons. So it was, the other day we got up and there's water all over the floor and everything was warm in the freezer. The fridge was like 55 degrees and he had pressed the buttons, like the temperature buttons on the front. Because, you know, he's 2. If it's a button, it's a button.
How can he reach that far up?
He's pretty tall to be 2, I guess. I don't know. So we had to empty our entire fridge. And the thing is, for the past like 3 months, the thing's been leaking water, and it's been really annoying.
Right.
Because we'd wake up and there'd be this huge pool of water in front of the thing, and I was like, "This is really annoying," and I don't like it. And so I don't know why, but at like 11:30 last night, I thought, I bet it's the drain. I bet it's the defrost drain in your freezer. And sure enough, I opened up the freezer, took everything out of the bottom, and there's just a sheet of ice across the whole bottom. And so I went and took the drain tube out of the back. Because apparently, I didn't realize this, apparently your freezer will defrost and dump the water that it defrosts into a pan underneath your fridge, and then it just relies on evaporation to take care of it.
I did not know that. I haven't touched the bottom of my fridge in 2 years, so oh God. So I don't know what kind of surprise there is there.
So we took the tube out. The drain tube, because I was like, well, if water is not draining, there must be something blocking the tube, and sure enough, there was. So now it's clear, and there hadn't been any water on the floor in the kitchen for at least the last 11 and a half hours. So,
and to clarify, that was 11 last night, not 11 in the morning.
No. I was about to go to bed, and I was like, I'm really annoyed with this thing. And so I thought, let me just see.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, that's what it was. And so my wife came down and said, "What are you doing?" Like,
2 a.m. in the morning. What are you doing, John?
Fixing the freezer.
I'm fixing the freezer.
What are you doing? Anyway.
I spent half of my day off yesterday playing games on my Xbox. And I was like, should I buy them for Xbox? I was playing Monster Hunter. Back in the day when I had a PSP, when I used to commute between Glasgow and Edinburgh in my UK days, I used to, what am I going to do to spend my 50 minutes on the train? Obviously, I could read a book, and then that was an idea. I was, screw books. I'm going to play something. So I convinced my wife to go and buy a PlayStation Portable. And one of the games that I have fond memories of was playing Monster Hunter on the PSP.
Nice.
And the other day, I was on the weekend, I decided to update all my gaming devices. So both my PlayStation and my Xbox had not been booted for 3 months, so there was a ton of updates. So I did my updates, and then I was like, there's new games in the Game Pass. Let me go and get them. And I got Monster Hunter. So yesterday I was like, you know what? I'm going to spend some time playing this. So I played a few missions, and before you know it, I had spent 4 or 5 hours playing Xbox games. And my kids were so excited because I was slaying monsters.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good productive or non-productive day off if you take away the pain. But I did not fix a fridge. I did not do any chores around the house other than chilling. I also started reading a book, and I did an insurmountable or uncountable number of forms for immigration. I had an insane amount of, like, check this out. I start filling everything. I fill all the forms, and we're talking about, like, I could not even print them on my local machine because there was so much to print. So I went to the office the beginning of the week, printed everything out, hundreds of pages.
Yeah.
When I came back home, so, there are certain places that you have to fill in and sign stuff. So I was signing happily there for kids and me and stuff. And then I read the email again. It says, oh, use a blue pen, not a black one, because the black one seems like it's a copy. And because we need to prove that it's an original, you have to use a blue pen. So like, oh God, so I had to print out all the sign forms. At least I had to select the pages and print them again. Like,
Nice.
oh. I didn't escape the printing in the house eventually, but that was like a good 3 hours just drinking tea, listening to music, and signing in forms. That's a fun way to spend your day off, but it has happened. So I suppose no better time than now. And I have
Well, I mean, hey, at least it's done, right?
Well, you say that, U.S. immigration is one of these things that you don't know if you're
It's
done
never-
until you're done.
It's never done.
It's
Yeah,
never done.
it's like we were talking about yesterday. Like, we need to figure out some sort of like a trading card thing where we just can, we just trade passports. Like, I'll give you mine. We figure out a way to put your picture on it, and we're good to go. And I'll go to where Scotland? Is that where your last citizenship was?
Well, it depends. Do you want to be isolated in the UK post Brexit, or do you want to be part of the European Union? If you want that, I can give you my Greek passport. If you want to be part of the Great Britain, then I'll give you my Scottish passport.
How many people speak English in Greece? That's probably that's my biggest.
Everyone.
Oh, good,
Everyone.
perfect. Let's go to Greece then. Let's see,
Yeah,
Greece.
I don't think you'll struggle. Although they
Greece
speak with
weather.
my accent, so I don't know if that's going to be satisfying.
Hey, it's 79 degrees right now in Athens.
Yes,
It's absolutely beautiful. So yeah,
Yes.
I mean, obviously that's the place to go. So
Well,
we'll
it's-
just figure it out, like an
it's
immigration
nice and warm. Nice
Red
and warm.
Rover.
Without the humidity. That's the important bit. Like in Greece, you don't get humidity, which is fantastic. How good is your Irish accent? I'll give you a passport. There you go.
I don't
Not many
have
speakers.
one
Oh,
at
really?
all.
Fool's Nubble is saying that not many Greek speakers or Greek people speaking English. I'm surprised because English is taught everywhere, and they have a really high expectation of your fluency in English as a second language in Greece. Not as good as the Swedish. I mean, I don't know if you've ever come across.
Here's the phrase. You need to teach me how to say, I know Christos Matskis in Greece, and then they'll all leave me alone. Or maybe it'll have the opposite effect. I don't know.
Yeah, you might be booted out of the country because you're like, oh, Christos, good. We
Yeah,
kicked him out 20 years ago.
Yeah, he's coming back. We don't want any of this. We can't have anybody affiliated with him.
Man. Yeah, knowing Christos is something to be proud of. Exactly. I'm not even proud of myself, so why would you be proud? Don't use my name. Don't name
All
me.
right, so what's happened? What's happened community side this week in your super
Yeah, man,
tiny
let's do
screen
some-
that I can't read?
Community news. Is the resolution not good enough?
It's way too small to read.
Really?
Oh yeah.
How about now? Well, you know what? It's your fault. You said go and get a
close.
4K. You said go and get a 4K monitor because that's how you do streaming. I was like,
Maybe
okay,
one
I'll go and
more.
get it.
Maybe one more click.
Wow, that's like 300%. Are your eyes okay today? It's 200%. Sorry, I'm just messing with you. And of course, for our audience to be able to see that. So the first one is something I caught on Twitter the other day. Sorry, not Twitter. Reddit. Reddit is one of these communities that we tend to engage. So somebody has put this nice list of videos and content that they wrote. It's from Coding Flamingo, by the way. It's a fantastic name. I'm starting to feel that my Christos Matskas alias all over the place is totally unimaginable and boring as hell. So Coding Flamingo here has a slew of resources if you want to do stuff with Azure AD. So some videos, some blog posts. Definitely something to check out. I will pass the links on the blog post that we do every week. Next, we have a look behind Azure AD permission classifications. So this is a nice one because it gives you an idea about how permissions work behind the scenes. So if you ever want to manually fiddle with them and use Graph to do stuff, including consent and permissions, then this is a nice blog post that explains a few things and how they work behind the scenes. And yeah, I mean, we're hopefully adding a UI into managing roles and permissions in Azure AD. That should be coming soon. But in the meantime, you can use an API.
Well, it's neat, though. It's neat because the one thing I'd mention is it's neat that permissions classification is sort of a first step towards more granular consent, right? Like the big problem we have now that we hear from folks is that, well, I've built an API that's protected by Azure AD, and now I need to build a front-end app for it, or I need to build something else. But I've got to, get an admin to go and consent to this permission because it's an app permission or whatever. Or like the case that we were in for a long time where we, because consent was essentially turned off for us in corporate, there was no way for us to consent to even the basics like user.read.
Yes.
So this classification is cool because it's a way to start saying certain permissions are low impact, or certain permissions people can just consent to on their own.
Yep.
And it's a good step on that road because it'll make it a lot easier if you're building apps with Azure AD to have a lot more velocity as a developer, so that you don't have to go find your admin. Like one of our customers the other day told us that they said, yeah, that's cool that we need to get admin consent, but we literally have no idea who the admins are, and the admins in our tenant are named admin 001 and admin 002.
Man, that's awful.
Yeah.
Why?
So.
And Bolt is saying that he was playing with the new B2C API connectors yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Which is going to solve a lot of client problems with vanilla flows. Yes, those vanilla flows.
Well, because that's the thing. If you need a REST API, you literally have to go to custom policy immediately. And if you say you've configured 20 identity providers and all sorts of user flows, you can't access them from custom policy if you do them in the portal and vice versa. So you have to go and re-implement everything. So API connectors will be awesome because now instead of having to use custom policy, you can use API connectors directly. So, in fact, I've got some B2C stuff too once we get through your frozen browser.
Yeah, I didn't know if you could see that, but isn't it amazing?
Yeah, it's got that nice white sort of sheen.
The milky, I missed that. Let's see. If I close the program, will it crash all of Edge? Too many windows open. Yes, I crashed Edge. There you go. It's okay. I can easily go back to that. I don't know if you've used. It's not called bookmarks, but it is called. Let's see what it's called. It's called collections. And I love collections because you can just open all of them. It will open all of them here. So you can add things as you go, almost like a group of bookmarks, and then it remembers these things, and it's easy to add and remove without messing up with your bookmarks. So we've done the first two. Now, next one is about understanding and governing reauthentication settings in Azure Active Directory. Yeah. Not so much as a developer kind of a focus here, but I think if you want to understand how the flow works and what options you have, this is a great blog post to understand. Like multi-factor authentication, you get the keep me signed in options, conditional access further down, sign-in frequency, persistent browser sessions, and what are the scenarios that make up the using experience. So even talks about domain joined devices. So I think this is a great blog post as an informational one. I mean, as a developer, you want to know how the user experience, right? Not just I secured a user sign-in, but also how can I make that experience better. So we'll share the link for that one. Next one is from our friend Damien Bod. He's on fire lately. He's got like blog posts back to back, and we keep on talking about him every single week, I think. This time he touches on encrypted access tokens in Azure with Microsoft Addend.web. So Microsoft Addend.web is our latest library for .NET developers to be able to authenticate and manage tokens inside .NET Core applications. And with this blog post, Damien is explaining how you can set up your tokens so they can be encrypted. So down here, you don't have to do anything in the API, but when it comes to the configuration, you see that it actually points to a key vault certificate. And then at the time that we need to validate the tokens, it would just go grab the certificate and bring it back, which is great. And you can actually have an encrypted and non-encrypted version in your application. So as you test, you can see that the right claims are coming down, but when you go into production, you get the encrypted token. So an extra layer of security on top of TLS.
Oh, nice.
And yes. You know what? I don't remember seeing that anywhere documented, by the way. Like I didn't even know that this existed. So well done, Damien, for teaching us something. Like I didn't even know you can do client certificates directly here. So did you know, JP?
I've used client certificates for like authentication, but I've never used them for encrypting the tokens. I've never done that.
Yeah, it's amazing, right?
Yeah, no, that's super cool. Yeah, I love it. We're going to have to try that now.
We have to try that now.
But, yeah, absolutely.
It turns out that once you spin up your certificate inside Azure Key Vault, everything else happens behind the scenes for you, so you don't have to.
Just works.
Yeah, just works.
That's super cool.
Yeah. Next one, not so much on identity, but since I love Key Vault. Key Vault is one of my favorite services. Between Key Vault storage and App Insights, I'll be hard pressed to choose one I like the most. Obviously, Azure AD. Yeah, if people are like, yeah, he works for identity. Like Azure AD, obviously, as a service. But if I were to choose another service to work with, then Azure Key Vault now has a built-in integration for Event Grid, so you can listen to events as they happen on Key Vault, which is fantastic. Cool. Or you can set up this kind of a notification process via Event Grid, which I think is great because it opens up so many scenarios. And since Event Grid is now built into Azure Functions, there's so many scenarios they can integrate with when it comes to Azure Key Vault. So this has just been released. And finally, from our boss, Alex Simons, there's a new blog post about Azure AD provisioning with attribute mapping for improved performance. So the important bit here is not so much for developers again, but as an organization, if you rely on Azure and Azure AD, then we've added a number of features to improve the experience, including better mapping for attributes, improved performance for Azure AD Connect, and better logs that can fit into Azure Monitor as well.
Nice.
So something that you can be aware of. Again, I know that some developers, especially in smaller shops, tend to have this kind of an overseeing of the Azure AD tenant sometimes. So it's nice to bring this to the surface. You might not ever care about these things, or you might reach out to your IT team and say, hey, by the way, this has just been added. Can we switch it on and see how we can leverage that? So
yeah,
I think bringing awareness on these features is nice, even though you might not use them directly.
Yeah.
So this is where we are. Oh, and
nice.
One more announcement. I got a new light, by the way, from. So I have one on the left and one on the right. I know. It's not an exciting announcement, but for one, I paid $200. The other is $20. I'm like, I am hard pressed now to see why I spent $200 when the $20 one is doing equally a great job. So I'm not, it's not endorsing it, but I came across this when I was looking for a colleague who was like, we need to get some lighting. I didn't want to tell them, go and buy something that's $200. And
just wait to see if it burns your house down first before giving it a resounding.
Come on, man! It's LED. I'm just touching it right now, and there's no heat. And also, it has a double stand. So one is to put your Brio or a mobile phone if you want to, and then the other one has the light. So it has an attachment, so you can actually have the Brio and the light together, almost like a ring. So it's a ring light, but it's a small one. It's like this diameter.
Well, at least we know if this doesn't work out, we have a career at QVC waiting for us.
selling lights, promoting. It's amazing, and you can see that. And it's only $30. Anyway, it's an offer. And I got
promoting randomly named things from Amazon. So Brett Miller tells us that they're doing Event Grid notifications for using Let's Encrypt with Key Vault, which is absolutely awesome. I'd love to see it.
Oh, nice!
You've got to show us that. I'm like super curious about that.
Yes.
So. Okay, I've got a couple things. So our good friend Bolt sent us some wonky behavior that he was getting.
Oh.
With with none other than B2C. I mean, imagine that. Who could have guessed that somebody would get wonky behavior out of B2C? So, okay, so this is what he sent over, and it's all about user journeys in B2C. So in a user journey, when you go through the different steps in B2C of logging in a user, like check their credentials, call a service, emit claims, those sorts of things, you have these actions, right? And these preconditions are ways to say, should I do this action or should I not? So it's just do I execute this step in a workflow or do I skip it? And what he found was the value here of true if the claim is a boolean. When you use true, the string true, because of course you're writing in XML, so you kind of have to write the word true. When you're using true, it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, right? So in this case, if CA challenge is block was true, then it should have been skipped. But in fact, it was not. Or sorry. Because this one is execute if false, because it is true, then we would have skipped. So it should not have skipped, and so we should have executed. Anyway, the short version of this story is these are case sensitive, and not just case sensitive. They're expecting title case, right? So because I was like, oh yeah, I think it's got to be a bug or whatever.
Oh yeah, you're supposed to be sharing.
Oops. Yep, I am. I am supposed to be sharing, and I was not.
I've got the best links. That's why he's sharing my screen.
Yeah, obviously. Thanks for the heads up. So here's what we were just talking about. So in this case, the claim value for CA challenges block is true, and we should do this. We should execute this action if it's false, right? So what we expect to have happen here is that this step gets skipped because this is not. So we're expecting an execution, but what we're actually getting is a skip, right? And it all comes down to this value, our true value here. So our true value, being as it is not capitalized T, it actually doesn't work. So I was
as a developer, case sensitivity is important. So when I don't know why someone would code with hard dependencies on case sensitivity when you have to compare things. And I would expect it to be turned into a Boolean when you do the check behind the scenes. So whether it's uppercase or lowercase, true. But
well, especially because the data type is a bool, you would expect you could put true, capital true, all capital true, a zero, a one, whatever.
God,
a capital T, I mean, anything that bool.parse will take in .NET, right? So, of course, I was very indignant about this. Like, I can't believe this. So I went and I put in a bug, and somebody came and slapped me down pretty quickly and said, no, that's the way it's supposed to work. Here's the documentation that tells you that. And sure enough, I'll put this link in the chat. Sure enough, for preconditioned Boolean claims, the value must be capital true or capital false. This is case sensitive. Now, of course, this isn't in the...
Phil Snabel is saying VB6 wasn't case sensitive. So maybe, I'm just saying, maybe Azure AD B2C is written with VB6. Don't take it from me, but it could be written with VB6, and somewhere it's running on some Windows 2000 server. And we are where we are today. I'm just obviously.
So anyway, so the short version is use capital T or capital F if you're checking against a Boolean, or call it a string, and then it doesn't matter what you do.
Can you imagine trying to debug this? It's so hard, right? Because how would you figure out?
Well, that's what Bolt told us, was that it was literally hours of what is happening to try to figure it out. Because he also sent over where the same conditions were working as expected when the data type was a string. So and there are a lot of docs to update. So that'll be the next thing that we have to go and get handled, is that these docs need to be updated, especially with some of these new claims that we don't control, like for conditional access and those sorts of things.
Okay.
A lot of the docs point to a lowercase t, and of course they need to be capital T apparently if you're using proper data typing.
Yes. And Full Snubble is coming back and saying, yes, they learned YAML interprets no as false. Let's not go into YAML because people probably that have been watching the show know that we have strong feelings about YAML. almost as strong feelings as containers.
Well,
So,
I mean, the thing is you have to remember too. Like, I spent so much time doing XML and B2C. I got really used to a schema, and anyway, it doesn't really matter. So, so thank you for bringing that to our attention, Bolt. By the way,
yes.
And we will make sure the docs get updated, and I will continue to work and say, why on earth, I guess I'm of the opinion that read the manual is not a valid developer experience for,
Nope.
For stuff like this. Like, okay, sure, you need to do something super, super complex. Yeah, you got to go read the book. But I kind of feel like in 2020, read the manual is not a valid answer. So, especially for sort of the basics of functionality. Like, yeah, you want to do something hard, then,
Yeah, and with modern languages, you would expect things like that to be fairly easy to solve or solved already 10 years ago. But there could be some BB6 running somewhere behind the scenes there. It's not saying that loud. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay.
Anyway.
So what are we doing today? We're gonna. I think I told everybody we were gonna do Alexa today, right?
Well, you committed to that, so good on you.
So that's our special guest. Our special guest.
It's Alexa.
Our special guest is Alexa. So about an hour ago, we were talking, and I said, I don't want to do notifications today because A, notifications are boring, and B, I mean, maybe they're not boring, but it's one of those things you got to do, and it's a lot of plumbing.
Be careful what you say there, because we were hoping to get Clap Dubois to come to our show and do our notifications for us. Not because they're boring, but because we want to work with Clap Dubois. So we thought that maybe switching to Alexa would be more exciting.
Yeah. So about an hour ago, we decided, let's go and figure out how to make this work. And I'm happy to report that within an hour, it did work. So let me get this zoomed in here a little bit. And let's go take a look.
I thought you were just going to look in the documentation. I didn't realize that you were going to implement it as well. That's crazy.
Well, I figured, if there was going to be something like really, really hard and awful to it that was going to cause it to break, I wanted to get ahead of it so that
let's not do it.
Yeah. So
I'm losing you, Alexa. Right.
Okay. So, a couple things since we were last together on Monday. Yes. I did finally get around to implementing the blob writer that writes out our template. So if you weren't with us last week or earlier this week, we're building a tool that manages our Azure resources for us. Primarily, its main goal is to tag resources with an expiration date when they get created, and then nuke them into orbit later on. Right. So to delete them whenever they expire, and also give us a little bit of recoverability, like, hey, let's save the ARM template to storage, for example, for that resource group, and let's send out notifications beforehand to say, hey, I'm going to be deleting these things fairly soon. We've gotten, we're essentially done with scanning, we're done with tagging. We're saving and persisting resource groups when they expire. We've got some queries ready. So about the only thing we're not doing right now is we are not actually doing deletion yet, because that's somewhat of a commitment that I'm not necessarily ready to make. Did Christos freeze? Did you freeze, Christos? Or are you still there? Nope. I guess I'm all alone. He's gone. Maybe he'll come back. I hope he comes back. I hope I'm not the one who's alone now. So anyway, we are... maybe I ought to ping him and tell him he's not here. I still hear him, though. Like, I still
Can you hear me? Can you hear me fine? I'm here.
I can hear you. Just your video seems to be broken. So
obviously, something has to break today. Let me come off Skype and come back again.
Okay. At least the freeze frame didn't leave you in an uncomfortable position.
I'm so serious on the frame, right? Like, look at that. He's so focused.
You do look pretty focused. Let's see if he makes it back. Anyway, all right. Are you back?
I am back. That reminded me, in the early days when doing the stream, and there was a keyboard shortcut that you were pressing all the time, and you were putting me off.
Connecting you all the time. Yeah.
It's like this Skype is so unreliable. It just disconnects me all the time.
Yeah. So
it was just put me out.
So we've gotten to the point where we are tagging resources, finding ones that are untagged, tagging them, scanning for untagged ones, and scanning for expired ones, and then queuing up a persist when that happens. So You're frozen. Your video's frozen again, by the way. We may just not get to. I mean, it's not frozen in a bad way. So at least if you like to go voice only, you won't look too bad for the rest of the show. But and it's Friday, so we only have another 90 minutes left. So there were a couple things that were kind of interesting that I found out earlier, which were some of the resource management stuff in the Azure SDK is a little wonky. So we had to do some interesting implementation around getting the resource group templates, and we'll go and look at that once you're back. Can you still hear us, Christos?
I can hear you, but I think Skype is having issues this morning. Let me.
This is very authentic for like a Teams meeting.
Yeah.
Anyway. So if we go look at, let's go look at the code for, oh, he hung up. Okay. You're back now for now. Don't move too fast.
Maybe don't touch anything.
Maybe if you move too quickly, your video freezes up.
I'll keep a smiling face so in case I freeze again. Well, like he's enjoying it so much.
So okay, let's go look at what we need to do for exporting resource groups. Now there was some code that we had written last week specifically for exporting resource group templates. So if you're not familiar,
can you close your command window and then minimize? Zoom in the code a little bit.
Yep. So last week we were using the Azure SDK Resource Manager, right? Mm-hmm. The problem is when I started to use this, when I was testing it to see what to expect with it. There was one thing in particular that just didn't work very well. So, in particular, I'll just uncomment these so we can take a look. So we have this export resource request, right?
Yes.
Get some of this stuff out of the way. So we have this export resource request, and that is what the export template request is. What we send to is what the resources management client needs when you do a start export template async, right?
Okay.
The problem is that it expects this resources list. So if you wanted to filter it, so like say you wanted to only So you want to do a filter on just SQL databases, just VMs, just VM disks, or something else, right?
Okay.
There are any number of different things any different filters that you could use. The problem is, and I imagine this is probably just because the SDK is still kind of beta, the problem is the resources collection is read-only. So I can't assign to it. And there are no sort of overloads in here that would let me create a new one. I couldn't find any sort of like export template request factory. I really couldn't find anything related to actually creating this request. And there aren't that many. There aren't that many
examples.
Well, so there weren't that many docs on it. There were a couple samples on GitHub, but they used this exact syntax. So I suspect it's just a bug. It's something we'll file for later. But that means I couldn't really use this because that's a required field. If you don't have the resources filter, and of course our filter is just everything. If you don't have the resources filter, it doesn't work. Like you can't submit the request. You get a bad request, 400 bad requests back, right?
Yeah, we need an overload to do default, for example.
Yep. So
that's insane. Okay.
Yeah. So we had to. So I kind of had to do it manually, which doing it manually proved to be a little bit more interesting than I expected too. And by doing it manually, I just mean we're gonna get an access token and we're gonna call the REST API endpoint directly. And the REST API endpoint in this case is just management.azure.com, your subscription, your resource group, your group name, and then there's an export template method that hangs off of those.
Okay.
And then of course you'll notice here's our content with our resources. Now, the thing is, what you get back from this is a 202 accepted, right? So
and some link that you can go and get the data from.
Well, so yeah, so the whole thing around 202 accepted is it's sort of like I don't want to call it an async thing, but the whole point is if I've got a request that might take a little while, for example, exporting a resource group template, because some of those templates could be really big if you have a ton of resources in there.
Oh yeah. Yep.
When it's a potentially long-running operation, you can either just wait and let the caller sit there and wait, right?
Right.
Or what we see a lot, especially in cloud side and sort of modern services, is instead of doing of making the caller wait, instead we send back immediately. We queue up the work to be done, and we tell the caller, "Hey, 202, we've accepted it." So that's HTTP status code 202, which is what you see here. And by doing accepted, we also send back some extra data in the headers. So there's a retry after. That's another sort of standard HTTP header for doing this. And retry after tells the caller, hey, after so long, try again. And it also will provide a location. So in this case, we've got a location. We've got of where we can actually go and get the data later on. So I had one of these requests. I'm just going to pull it up so you can take a look at it and see.
Oh God, I froze again.
You did.
But look at me, how serious I am in that
it's okay.
picture.
My wife came
so focused.
My wife came in my office the other day, and she says, and you were on the screen, and she's like, he looks so intense. How do you talk to him all day? I was like, well. So anyway, so here's a request. So this is a post request. So we're going to post to the same thing we had in our code. So we're going to make this post. The only thing in the body is resources, right? And you'll notice we get an empty. You'll notice we get an empty body back, so there's no actual data in here. But we do have a couple interesting headers. And so one of the headers that's interesting here is retry after. So this is 15, and this is expressed in seconds. So your retry after is 15 seconds, but there's also a location. So this isn't a requirement. You depending on how you want to design your API could say location, it could not send back a location, and you could just make the same call again to the same endpoint. So we have our retry after in seconds, and then we have a location. And in this case, we have a location, and this is where we're actually going to go get our data, right?
Yep.
So in that way, because we have all the data we need to make our subsequent request, the code for it is actually fairly straightforward. So we have this, we have a loop here of pretty much while the status code that gets returned is accepted. I've got a default delay of 15 seconds so that if for some reason the header doesn't get sent or it's malformed or something's wrong, we at least have sort of a default. And then we go get the delta, and the delta is in .NET. This is what you'll see on an HTTP request when those headers come back. So we have the value, we have a delta of total seconds. And then we're just doing a task.delay. I'm sure there's a better way to do. I'm sure there's a better way to sort of weight this task, but I was really just kind of curious to see how well we could get it working, and it turns out it actually works fairly well. And then we're going to do a get. So this is the second half of our request. So we've done our wait. We're going to do our get against the location. If the location isn't available, we're just doing it against the primary export URI.
Okay.
In reality, this logic probably needs to be updated so that if location is null or empty, we have to do another post to the export URI instead of a get. Because right now we're doing a get with our get async here, and
right.
The export path here isn't actually valid for a get. So we have to update that, but.
Technically, all this logic would be nicely encapsulated inside the SDK that is further down, but since that is slightly not working as expected, we're stuck with manually rolling our HTTP request, which at least shows you that everything is going against an HTTP endpoint. SDKs are there to make our life a lot easier.
Yeah, so, and this is a fairly common pattern. The 202 accepted pattern is fairly common, especially when you've got lots of cloud services that have potentially long-running operations. So it certainly is not something you have to implement every day, but it's certainly something that you'll come across, and I think it's something that you'll come across more frequently as time goes on. And so here, this is one of the folders, and so these were my pending expiration things. And if we open up one of these JSON files, you notice they're 28 and 56K, 28 and 56K represent accordingly. So there is some data in there. That means that our function binding is doing that write. So that write's being done by the function binding, and we'll go look at that here in a sec as soon as this downloads.
Yes. Nice.
So let's open this up and let's see what we get. And sure enough.
So now we have a backup. So when you say I want to delete things, it will take a backup for us, which is fantastic because we don't want to inadvertently make things broken, or you delete something that you change your mind afterwards. You can always go back to it.
Yep. So here's our here's our thing. Yeah. So
there's something important here to clarify, right? So when you do this backup, it will only back up your infrastructure. It will not back up your data or your code.
That's right.
So if you have a web app that is running, it will take a backup of your web app. It will not take a backup of the code. So you should have backups of your code. Hopefully you're using the backup functionality that is built in. Same for databases. You can get the SQL infrastructure back, but you won't have your database backups. Or sorry, your database data. So you need to go and look at your backups. Hopefully you have a disaster recovery and always continuous backups with whatever you do. So very important to clarify that if you delete a resource group, your data is going with it. Yep. So you can restore the infrastructure. You need to have a way to restore your data.
Yeah, so for me, the vast majority of the effort to get Azure resources out is in the configuration of those resources, right? So either building a template yourself, like if you haven't built a template, or in some cases, you may deploy something through the portal, download a template, tweak and modify the template, and then check that in as part of your code, which would be great. But there are also cases where people have, may have made changes to your resource group after your deployment, and so you want to capture sort of like a now view of what that looks like, and then try to figure it out later. Kind of like what they showed us with Terraform a few weeks ago, where Terraform can go and look at a resource group or look at Azure and say, oh, these are the things that have changed, and pull that down and say, this is what's representative, right? So yeah, and then there's a question about SDKs being too heavy, and that's certainly true. I personally err on the side of making my own HTTP requests, but there are definitely some SDKs that are worth having. The storage SDK for Azure, for example, is one of them.
Yep.
I had a customer a while back who had the same sort of they had the same strong aversion to using SDKs, and. Okay. And we said, well, wow. The storage SDK is built by Microsoft. The code's available for your review. You really don't want to get in the business of writing your own storage SDK for Azure Storage, just because there's a lot of specific and sort of subtlety and nuance in how you have to do it, especially with reading and writing. AC Wildfire, especially with reading and writing files. So if you were writing a blob, it was a fairly involved process. There were lots of different pieces of computation you had to do in order to upload a file, for example, to blob storage. You had to use like a block map of which blocks, how many blocks you're going to have. Yeah. It's involved. And as sort of a POC, they said, well, we want you to help us write one in Java. So I had the pleasure of writing a blob uploader with raw HTTP requests in Java. And said, well, you could use this if you want, but there's about 99% of the API surface that I didn't touch. So you've got to use an SDK in some cases. So in this case, because we're already using the SDK for resource management, it made sense to continue to use it because we've already got it. But unfortunately, right now we just can't use it because there's a little bit of a bug. But it's preview anyway, so we can go put a bug request in. I'm sure it'll get fixed up. So this was our export function. So this is what's actually exporting the resource groups. And if we go back to our sort of high-level functions that are doing it, you'll notice we're doing this call here to go and get the resource group template. And then the function itself, by virtue of the blob storage binding and functions, is what's actually handling the persistence. So it's kind of nice because you'll notice there's no Azure Storage SDK code in here. We're binding to a text writer, and we're writing the template data to that text writer, and that's it. We don't have any sort of specifics.
Taking advantage of the bindings in Azure functions, it's brilliant because technically behind the scenes they are using the Azure SDKs. By the way, you just don't have to see it because you don't have to worry about how it gets implemented. You're just using the bindings, and that's one of the fantastic things about functions and serverless.
Yep.
By the way, shout out to Azure Wildfire, who's watching us on the big screen, which is a scary proposition there. It almost feels like a Friday afternoon. Well, I'm chilling with pizza and these two guys talking about Azure, which is great. Thank you.
Yep.
And Ashraf's joining us this morning. So hi to everyone that has joined the stream, and thanks for joining us. Today we are wrapping up the Azman or Thrazman, as we call it these days, and we are going to add some Alexa functionality there. So for those ones that have just joined us, this is where we are.
Yeah, cool. So we're writing our thing out, and one of the things I was thinking about yesterday, because this is going to be important for the notifications too, is how do we control how many notifications or how many times we save this, especially if our scanning functions are scanning frequently, if we're scanning every few minutes or every day. And so I kind of boiled down to 3 different options. One option being just run it once a day. Which would certainly
problem solved. I like
certainly be the easiest and most straightforward way to do it. You only want to get 1 notification a day. The way to do that is to only run the notifier once a day.
Only run once. There you go.
The second way was trying to thinking of what can we use to do deduplication or whatever. Maybe put it in Service Bus and then let Service Bus dedupe it, and you only run the notification function once a day, right? So things might be queuing up notifications all day long, but you only actually send them at the end of the day.
I see. I see what you did there.
But
very nice.
I also was kind of like, I really want to do that. That's kind of lame too. So I came down to just tagging the fact that we had done a task. So you'll notice there's a new method on here called add tags.
Okay.
And our tags, we just have an exported true flag here. And part of the decision behind that was that I don't want to build a UI. I have no interest in building UI because A, I'm terrible at it, and B, it's super frustrating. So instead, we already have this beautiful UI. I will let that one slide. We already have this UI in the Azure portal, right? And the UI in the Azure portal lets us see our tags and lets us edit our tags. And so in some ways I kind of felt like, well, hey, if you had already exported it, or if you want to change the expiration date, well, just come here and edit the tag. And this is your UI for doing it, right?
Perfect.
So let's see. There was
love it.
So we've also got this cool manage view now in the portal. Where your tags are included. So we can add a tag here, and if I add one for exported, which should be there, it is, exported.
Hey, and important, by the way, very important, you can actually create your own customized dashboard inside Azure. So you can have a customized dashboard that is all about notifications and resource management. So you don't have to try to dig in here and come to the resource groups and whatever. You can have it on your homepage as you sign into Azure. So this is important, right? Remember, you can have multiple custom dashboards inside Azure AD. Hey, there's a question, by the way.
Oh, good.
Mr. Our friend AZ Wildfire is saying, does this code or SDK support snapshots, and how do we get charged for the I/O for it?
As in creating a VM snapshot, I'm pretty sure it does because it's just an API wrapper. So I'm fairly certain that you could do a VM snapshot or a blob snapshot. Those blobs would be saved. So yeah, you pay for it. The IO, I don't think you get hit for IO on an Azure VM blob snapshot or on an Azure VM disk snapshot. I don't think you.
It's not because there's no egress, right? It's just that. Ingress.
I suppose. There's a difference between doing like a block level, there's a difference between doing like an OS level copy where you copy a disk, because that will pull down from your I/O of the quota of your VM. So that does exist. However, when you're doing essentially a storage copy or a storage snapshot, that all happens at the storage layer. So it's essentially block level at that point. I think, and there's no I/O charge against your VM. So you can snapshot a VM and not pay an IO charge for that to happen. Because the last time I did it, which was admittedly probably 3 or 4 years ago that I had to snapshot a VM disk, I'm pretty sure it was a storage it was a storage issued request, and storage handled it, and it took a little while. And then that blob shows up as a snapshot of the parent blob.
Did you say 10 years ago?
No, 3 to 4.
Did I hear that
3
right?
to 4 years ago.
Oh, it's like we didn't have snapshots 10 years ago, unless I am.
There were no VMs 10 years
late
ago.
to the game.
No, 3 or 4 years ago. It's been a while. So, okay, so let's get to why everybody.
Are you saying that in 2010 we didn't have VMs in Azure? We didn't have IaaS in Azure 10 years ago?
We didn't. No.
It was like 2012 or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, you couldn't run a VM until. You couldn't run a VM until later. What was it, 2012, 2013?
Yeah.
Web and worker roles for life, though. I loved web and worker roles. I wish we still had something like them, especially worker roles.
Be careful what you wish for.
And AZ Wildfire, any idea when Ultra Disks will support snapshots? No idea. I have no clue. Although I know somebody who might know, and we should ping Miss Shannon and ask her because she might know.
True. Or somebody in the engineering team.
Yeah, so Shannon's been on our show before. She's a cloud ops advocate. So she does a bunch of ops work, and she worked with the storage team for 6 months, and she does a bunch of VMware stuff now, Azure VMware stuff. So I will ask her if she knows, because or if she doesn't know,
got the connection.
She knows who to talk to. So
yeah.
Okay, so let's get. Should we get to the reason why everybody came?
Alexa, man, come on. All right. Although they didn't know that, right? Oh, you have Alexa on the title, right?
Yeah,
nice.
I mean, how else are you going to pull people in? Okay, so can you see? I don't know if you can see this. Can you see this?
With our skills and humor.
I don't think the power cord's long enough. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
It is an extremely broken Echo Show. Okay. Because my wife was moving it, so she grabbed it. And it's not really made to hold. it's not really very ergonomic when it comes to holding it. So you can't really hold it very well. And so she dropped it, and so there's glass everywhere. So this one came down to my office, so the kids don't grab it, because the last thing I need to do is explain to the ER doctor that my 2-year-old grabbed a giant shard of glass off of a silly home assistant sitting in our kitchen.
Hey, Miguel DVBR, welcome from Brazil.
All right,
nice.
Brazil.
I like the diversity. We have got somebody from, they say Ireland, and we've got somebody from Brazil today. So nice. It's fantastic. Thanks for joining us.
Yep, that's awesome. I love it.
Just at the right time.
Every time I hear Brazil, Alexa, all I can think about is Ayrton Senna from Brazil, and when he won, and the announcer starts yelling.
Sad days.
Anyway, F1's back this weekend, by the way, which I'm super excited about. I actually have something.
I mean, is there any point watching now? Because we know that we have a leader, and I don't think we have a winner for this year, right?
I mean, Mercedes is
getting it.
Mercedes always wins, but who cares? Everything that happens in the middle, that's the excitement. So,
oh wow!
Bolt's colleague has gone to Portugal to go watch this weekend's race, which I'm super jealous of, because I am in South Carolina in a basement. Anyway, okay, so
you can create these kind of virtual monitors around your basement to pretend they have windows.
So I'm going to turn this thing up, and we're going to see if this works. Okay.
Do not order anything from Alexa for JP.
Well, luckily you're the only one whose voice is coming out. Okay. If you can't hear it, let me know. I'm gonna try to turn it up, so it might be kind of loud. All right.
The beeps are loud.
So let's see what. So one of the questions I want to ask it is. Alexa, ask Thrazman what's running.
Here's something I found on the web.
Oh, no.
According to Dribbable.com.
Stop. Okay, let's try this again. Okay. Alexa, tell Thrazman hi.
Announcing.
Oh, no. Don't announce to my whole house. I guess nobody's here, so maybe it doesn't matter. Okay. I'm going to try this one more time, and then I'm going to go open up the debug. Oh, you know why? It's because I'm not running the code. That would
because you haven't deployed to production yet.
Yeah, that would have been helpful. Okay, let's get the code running. And then we'll see what we got. Okay.
I don't get why is it not working? Why is it not working?
Alexa, why is it not working? I don't know why. Okay, we'll try this one more time.
Yes.
Okay, now that the extension's up, make sure I don't have any breakpoints sitting around here. Okay, good. All right. So, Let me make sure I said the right things. Okay, so I got ngrok running, so I can hit this locally. Alexa, tell Thrazman hi.
Do not anger Thrazman with unclear instructions.
Do not anger the Thrazman with unclear instructions.
Do not anger Thrazman with unclear instructions.
Alexa, exit. Okay, so that's a good start, right? Alexa, ask Thrazman what's expiring.
You have 2 resources being nuked into orbit in the next 3 days. Demo me P Brutus app modernization. Infamy prod storage. Why aren't these running in AWS?
Oh, see, now it's getting salty. Okay.
Oh, snap. Did you want that?
No, of course not. What are you talking about? It's sentient. It does it on its own.
Oh, wow. Talking about passive-aggressive Alexa there, man.
No kidding. I mean, I didn't ask for that. That seems a little harsh if you ask me. So let's look at the code that actually makes Alexa work, because there's lots of other stuff that we need to do here too.
Can I say I'm a little bit shocked, by the way? I mean, that was totally unexpected. I mean, kudos to Alexa for being so, forthcoming. But at the same time, why do you care? Obviously, I mean, you're using Alexa to tap into it. Damn! I am speechless right now. I did not expect that to happen.
I guess we're gonna maybe what'll end up happening is suddenly all of my Azure resources are gonna start quietly moving over to AWS, and I'll be like, why is that? And it's like, well, you gave Alexa access to your Azure subscription. What did you expect?
Wow.
So it's, and that's the thing. So I started working on this an hour, 45 minutes before the show, an hour before the show we did this morning, just to make sure that it wouldn't be a complete and total fail while we were out here today. And because I've literally never used the Alexa endpoint. So the code's actually fairly straightforward, but we got a couple more that we need to implement.
Should we give a shout out to our very good friend, Mr. Tim Hoyer, for providing the SDK, or are you going to talk about this at all?
Yeah. We'll get there. So, okay. So my use case is I want to get home from a trip, or I want to get home, or it's Saturday afternoon, and I'm like, oh my god, I got a bunch of VMs running, so I can say, hey Alexa, ask Thrazman what's running.
Thrazman knows when Thrazman knows.
Okay, so it doesn't
trust the process.
Okay, so it doesn't know yet. It's telling me to trust the process. I hope everybody can hear that because it's super loud in my office.
We can hear it. I can hear it loud and clear, although I don't know if everybody else can hear it on the stream.
I'm going to turn the screen around so the screen hits it. But anyway, so you'll notice we've got a couple things here. This is our HTTP endpoint. So this is what's going to be receiving the requests from Amazon. And we're going to go over to the Amazon portal here in a minute and show sort of all the things that we need to do to wire this up. So there's one package that was added. So let me get let's get the code up over here. If we go look at our CS proj, you'll notice there's this one down here for Alexa.net. Now this is written by Tim Hoyer. This seems to be sort of the de facto standard if you're doing .NET for interacting with Alexa, and it made it super, super easy. I knew really nothing about what the
API?
Alexa API looked like, and to be honest, I didn't really need to. In fact, I still don't really need to, because this handles this has a really neat sort of abstraction that sits on top of it. So we include this package. Nice. We include the Alexa.net package. The latest one is 1.14. If we go back over to our code, that's where things like skill request came from. So a skill request is when Alexa's talking to your code or to your skill. Okay. And so the request comes in. One thing I did find interesting is I tried to use system.text.json and it would not deserialize correctly.
Oh.
I went and looked on the internet, and apparently that's a known thing.
Oh, okay.
Something to do with .NET Core 3.1 and system text JSON. So that would not work, which was kind of a bummer. So I had to use Newtonsoft, which is why it's fully qualified here. So we get these. We get our skill request object, and in that object there are a few different things to look at. So we've got. Okay. Oops, so if I look at let's look at our input object. We have the context, but most importantly, we have the request and we have the session. So there's a little bit of state here too, which is kind of cool. So if you're doing like a multi-step thing, which we're going to end up doing anyway, if you're doing a multi-step thing, session makes it easier to sort of see the overall of what sort of a dialogue you're doing with the user. If you've ever done Microsoft Bot Framework, I kind of feel like, and I don't know enough yet to say this unequivocally, but I kind of feel like session is sort of like a dialogue in Bot Framework. So The big thing, though, is we have request, and the request has a bunch of different things sort of hanging off of it. And one of those in particular is the type. And if we go look at the JSON for this, there's actually a pretty considerable amount of JSON in the payload that you get. But so here's the context of all the different things that are available and what kind of device was asked. And since we're asking from a show that has a screen, we've got the screen size, we've got all sorts of different things, what the viewport looks like. Most of this is only important if we're going to show something, show video. So, and then it's got some user data, some device data, whatever. But the big thing for us, get past that one, is this request type. All right, so the request type here is of type intent request, and an intent, which we're going to go look at in the portal here in a minute. An intent is essentially a way to say, what can my application do? And then we wrap a bunch of stuff around it to say, well, when a user wants to do X, Y, Z, like delete a resource or see what their resources might be, we call that an intent. And so our intent, in this case, right now we have two. So back in our code, you'll notice we have two intent names. One is called check expiring, and the other one is called what's running. What's running is yet to be implemented. What's running is using just some sort of simple text of, Thrazman knows when the Thrazman knows, trust the process, that sort of thing. So we need to go and implement this one so we can see what's running. But then we also have our check expiring, and check expiring right now has a fairly straightforward, pretty basic implementation. So we're scanning for expired resources just like we do on a timer to scan them for pending expiration. But because this is on demand, we're just going to call it on demand. Okay. We go get the resource name or the resource ID out of it and then plunk it into the text that we want to send out. So we want to send text over Alexa. Here we go. This is how we do it. So I'm just joining those names.
I like the nuked into orbit.
Yep. So you can still, you can give it a little bit of your own personal flair, personal flavor. And then here we return the result. So all we're doing is taking the response and it's getting serialized by OK object result. And now,
there's a question. There's a question that's going to be personal for you, JP. Why Mr. or Mrs. Seppi TW is asking, why are you using VS Code over Visual Studio IDE?
Personal preference, I guess. I don't know. I like the integrated terminal. It makes it a little bit easier to get things, sort of get things done. I can zoom the whole interface.
That's a very good point, actually. It's really good for streaming because if you want to point to Solution Explorer in quotes inside VS Code, so much easier. You can't really do that in VS easily.
Yep. So it's a personal preference. I mean, I still use Visual Studio when I have to, but for the most part now, honestly, most of my work happens in VS Code just because it's just in some ways because it's easier and faster to get going. Because I've ended up using the CLI a whole lot more too. Not to say there's anything wrong with Visual Studio. I just don't use it very much anymore. Not as much as I used to, of course.
Yeah, and there's IntelliCode and IntelliSense in both Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code, by the way, and not just for .NET. So if you are looking at IntelliCode and IntelliSense, there are engines or language engines for Go, Python, Ruby, HTML, CSS, everything that you're looking for, JavaScript, Node, and what have you. So Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code have their own benefits, but they use the same kind of underlying IntelliCode and IntelliSense. So you still get IntelliSense here.
Yep.
Obviously, there are a lot of things that you get from Visual Studio that you don't get from Visual Studio Code. So a lot of hand-holding, a lot of Rails to help you get stuff faster. There are wizards inside there where you don't get these kind of things inside VS Code. So again, it comes down to preference and how you are more productive. We love all the tools out there. We love Rider. We had Rider coming on our stream a few weeks ago, JetBrains Rider. We like VS Code. We like IntelliJ. In fact, we're working very closely with the IntelliJ team for Azure AD. There are all these different tools. So from our perspective, we like to present all of them and give you options.
Yep. So there's a question too about whether or not we can change the content type on the return. There is. I don't remember exactly what it is. It requires a little bit of extra code. the OK object result takes 2 or 3 different types of objects. I remember I had to do this in another chunk of code. Let me just go check really quickly. OK object result content type. Let's see. Content types. That's right. Yeah. So instead of returning a new one here, I believe we can just set the property. Was it content types? Is that read only? I'm not sure. No, it's not. So yeah, we can set our content types here, just as things on the object, or you could do a thing to return is a new OK object result. And you give it your data, and then thing to return content types, which is a media type collection. We do an add on a new media header type value of application whack JSON. So yeah, you can do it here, or whatever kind. If you need to do like forms or whatever, the object result helpers do a pretty good job of trying to figure out what the data is and then formatting it correctly. But yeah, you've got the ability to override it if you need to. So, yeah, so it's relatively straightforward, and you could do it inline here too. Okay, so that's it. That's our whole method. There's a few things to kind of format the data up here, where we get the data, we deserialize it, we do a little bit of formatting on it. But we've got if it's a launch request, which is somebody just starting it without actually asking a question, that's when we have this, although she doesn't do a very good job of saying the name. She calls it the Thrazman, which is kind of like, I don't really like that. And then we have our default response, like when you don't, like when I don't understand what it is that you're trying to tell us. So this is just the default response saying, hey, I don't know what this is, and it's going to ask. And by saying that this is an ask, it causes Alexa to prompt. So with the little bar at the bottom or with the spinning ring to say, I'm going to say these words, and then I'm going to wait, and then I'm going to wait to see if the user says something different.
Right.
So that's the difference between an ask down here and a tell. So at this point, when we've determined that you're trying to check for expired resources, we're going to go find them, and then we're going to tell you, hey, this is it, and then the little circle is going to stop, and it stops listening. It's not expecting another response to come back. So the other case that we have right now is what's running, like what's still running right now, which is the other thing that we need to implement. And then we've got over here in the Alexa console, this is where we're going to go see what we're going to go look at how we actually had to get this wired up, because it's super, super, super simple. And there's one thing that actually is really cool, which is the smart home aspect of Alexa. So if you're familiar with Alexa, they have this, Amazon has this thing called smart home, where light bulbs and ceiling fans and any sort of smart home stuff will show up in the app. And then, of course, you can say, hey, turn off this or turn off that. So I thought it'd be kind of neat to have all your Azure resources show up as devices in smart home, so that you can just say, hey, Alexa, turn off VM123 and see what it would do. So we're going to take a quick break just because we've sort of reached the top of the hour. Let's go take a quick break. We'll be back in less than 5 minutes. We're going to take a look at what we have to do to configure this. And see, this is perfect. Thanks, Bolt. We should just we'll make all the Hue light bulbs or whatever start blinking. Start blinking whenever something's about to get YOLO'd out into outer space. So, okay, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in 5 minutes or less at about quarter after the hour. And we hope you stick around. We'll see you in a few. Okay, everybody, we're back. Reloaded. More caffeine, ready to go. All right. So this is the Alexa Skills portal. So when you create one, this is sort of the main place. And there really aren't that many settings that we have to set. So the first thing is we have to give it an invocation name, and this one's called Thrazman. Now, it can be whatever you want it to be. There's one thing in particular: skills that include brand names must be submitted by genuine vendors, and since I am decidedly not a genuine vendor, I don't think I could get away with calling this Azure. So instead, we'll have to use our own brand name, which is Thrazman. And so this is what we say to invoke the skill. So this is what we we say ask Thrazman, kind of like how, ask daily horoscopes, blah, blah, blah. We say ask Thrazman. So we get that set up.
I can't believe that you compare this with a daily horoscope.
Well, that's
you
what it
say. Ask NASA.
That's what it says. That's what it says on the thing, on the portal.
Yeah.
So, so then we get down to we kind of really get down into brass tacks here in a minute. So we have this interaction model. And if you've ever used LUIS, which is one of the Azure cognitive services for its language understanding and intelligence service, I think it stands for. LUIS is what we use for doing voice, to figure out what you mean when you ask a question. And and if you're familiar with LUIS, the way that you do it with Alexa is pretty similar. So there's this concept of an intent, and the intent is it's kind of a way to say, when somebody says something, these are the actions that my app can perform. So I've got two down here. We've got check expiring and what's running, right? So these two are, what is this? Want to get famous? What?
I am blocking them, so don't worry about it.
Thanks.
Don't worry. I got you covered.
Okay, good. Cool. All right.
Mr. Robert Tables is saying he reminded me of the Scatman song. So now it's going to be stuck in my mind forever.
Oh, this is gonna. Oh.
Yeah. Thank you, Robert Tables. Thank you.
I'm a Thrazman. Yeah, that's gonna be awesome. We should use that.
So Bolt saying, so I shouldn't enter my corporate credentials to that link.
Yeah, that's we gotta nuke that one. Get it off the stream quick. Say many things to make that message go away.
I'll maybe I should sing.
Christo should
sing. Maybe I should sing.
Maybe not. Anyway, okay. So we have this concept of intents, right? And the intents, these are ways for Alexa to understand what your application can do. So this is sort of the main interface between your app and Alexa. So when we create a new intent, in fact, let's just go create a new intent. So we've got check expiring, what's running. Let's get a little dangerous here, and let's do a delete resource.
Delete, yes.
So we're going to create a custom intent. Now there are lots of existing ones that you can choose from. Things like what's on my calendar, or what movies are coming up, whatever. We're going to do one called delete resource. So let's create a custom one. And we give it these sample utterances. So an utterance is what a user says. This is what a user is going to say to invoke this specific intent. So this one might be, please delete resource. I don't know how to do a thing here. Please delete resource, or delete resource, or nuke it into orbit. T-shirt cannon it into orbit.
So Sep is asking, is this a REST API? Which one exactly? The skill?
Which one? The skill or the function that we are writing? So we're writing a function. Our function is a web API. It is an API here. So you'll notice this is an HTTP trigger. I'll put a line break here so we can see it. So yes, this is an HTTP trigger. So we are writing a REST API to receive the calls from. We're receiving those via REST API. So yeah, that's a REST API that's running in an Azure function. It could be web API, it could be Node, it could be whatever you want it to be. As long as it's available on a publicly available HTTP endpoint, it can be anything you want it to be, and there are lots of different libraries available. We're using the Alexa.net library today, which is a community provided one from Tim Hoyer, which has a really neat, really nice API for interacting with Alexa in .NET. But yes, it is an HTTP trigger. It could also be a web API method that you go out and deploy. So when it comes to deleting resources, when somebody says one of these things, and not these things specifically, but something similar to this, the Alexa service handles figuring out, okay, somebody says they want to pull out the t-shirt cannon or they want to nuke this thing into orbit, then that means that they want to get rid of a specific resource, right? So once we've added these in, and we've got the simple ones like delete this or get rid of it. When we've got these in here, we save our model and then we go and build the model. And what's neat about this is that we can build this model, and that model is what handles figuring out what it might be. See you, Brett Miller, and thanks for hanging out with us. Hope you have a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday.
See you on Monday.
Yep.
Take it easy.
We'll be back Monday morning at 8 a.m. Thanks for hanging out with us today. We save our model, and then the Alexa service handles going and training that, right? And so you don't have to really have any sort of a solid understanding of all of the math and work that goes into language training of building language models, because most of that's done for you by the service itself. So you could say this, or you could say something kind of like this, or you could do different things. You don't necessarily have to say one of these words verbatim, because by doing this training of this model, that's ultimately it's using these as sort of samples to say, okay, cool. And yes, it adds a little bit of sass. So you put your own personality into it. Have fun with it. So we're gonna
have fun with it.
So we've built the model. So the model's been fully built, and of course these can be as complex as they need to be. And there are lots more sort of interesting things you can do, like something called conversations, where you have these sort of multi-step things that need to happen. But for now, we'll just kind of do a delete, and we'll sort of train it up like this. So now we have a delete resource intent. And down here at the bottom, you'll notice there's this intent confirmation. Does this require confirmation? This is probably the kind of thing that you want to make absolutely certain you want to do before we go and ask and ask Alexa to do it. So
yes, especially for deleting stuff, right? I mean, for pulling down resources that are due for deletion, should not require an extra step. But ASAP, I do not know when MS will release Visual Studio 2021. By the way, we have a dedicated channel to Visual Studio, which is the Visual Studio Twitch channel.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure that the people that hang out there are probably going to be better in answering these questions. I get it, though. I mean, it's nice to have inside scoops. But to be honest, I don't know when the new release of Visual Studio is coming up. Last time we released, it was 2018? No, 2019. Yeah, it was 2019, and I was part of the release as well. I should remember. Yeah. Oh, Bolt is saying, ask for a number at position N in PI to confirm intent. Give me position 16 of the pi number.
Yes, I need position 147 in pi, just to make sure you're not a human. Also, does this look like a traffic light? Okay, so we've created our intent for delete resource. And now that we have this intent back in our code, you'll notice we have our switch statement here, and we have two cases that we are currently working: check expiring and what's running, right? You'll notice this string is what matches here in the portal to our intents. So check underscore expiring is the same name that is in our code here for check underscore expiring. So we'll end up with a new case here called delete resource, I believe is what we called it. And then here we're going to have to tell it to do something. So return new OK object result response builder dot tell. Or first we're going to ask.
Yeah. Are you sure?
Which resource would you like to nuke?
Now, at this point, you might have 10 resources announced to you. Is there a way for me to say, I don't remember? And you can come back and give me more? Like, tell me again?
Yeah, so there's a whole sort of set of dialogue here, so we could say, "Hey, do this," and then somebody says, "I'd like delete number 4," right? Or as Bolt is saying, let's delete. Give me the GUID of the resource you would like to delete.
Quickly, you got 10 seconds.
Now, because we don't have deletion implemented yet, for the moment, I'm going to do a tell and just say, Thrazman.
He's deleting all of them.
Isn't ready to delete stuff. Deleting your entire
subscription.
Entire Azure subscription.
Have a great day.
JK. Thrazman isn't ready to delete stuff yet.
Love it.
Okay?
Love it. Yes.
So we've got our 3 cases for what's running, delete resource, and check expiring, right?
Okay.
So let's come back over here. So we've got our model built, right? Let's go back and let's run this again. I guess we need to run it again. Let's go and run it again, and see if our new delete resource is actually coming back.
You can do the refresh at the top
every time I
restart your app.
Every time I do that, VS Code hangs. So I don't do that anymore.
Fair enough.
Not unless everybody wants to see a milky white hung VS Code. Yep.
No, I'm good.
Yep. So, and that's true. Bolt mentioned, we need to do a postpone. So we got to get.
We did discuss about that, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And postpone is going to be useful for a couple reasons. In fact, let me get my OneNote back out, and we'll take a few notes because we're gonna be wrapping up here in a few minutes for today anyway, because we gotta move on so our next whoever's up next after us can get to it. So let's call this things left to do. So we got to do notifications. Notifications. Let's see, Twilio, email,
and Robert Tables is saying on the chat, this use case is very exciting for dev team ops. Opening up voice as an accessible way to do cool things. It's fantastic, right? We're improving accessibility onto your Azure subscription.
Yeah.
By adding voice.
Well, and I think that's the thing. Like, one of the things we talked about originally was, hey, deploy a VM for me. Like, I need a VM. Like, I need my standard VM template, right? Of an Ubuntu server 20.04 with this specific SSH public key and with a DS4 V2 or whatever. Like, pick whatever your things are going to be. That was one of the things we talked about doing earlier, which we still need to do. So we need to send out notifications. We need to send out. We need to wire up pending / deferral, and we need to wire up deleting, and something like I'm starting work.
Oh, that would be nice.
Yeah, because
spin up my VM.
Yep.
You know what? I could use that because I do that every single day. Maybe it can create a task to do that for me. But why not tell Alexa, hey, I'm just finished with my breakfast. Spin up my VMs.
Well, yeah, because a lot of times, I have to go into the portal, or not. I have to go into CLI and I say, hey, find me all the VMs in this resource group. I know what the VMs are. They're the same 7 VMs every day. But just being able to walk into my office, and even because when I walk in, I tell the things to turn on the lights for me. So I'm like, hey, turn on the lights. I could just have a routine called I'm starting work. And I'm starting work means turn on the lights in my office, turn on the ceiling fan, which that might be, I think there's probably a bad hum from that. Turn on the ceiling fan and start all of my VMs up, right?
Yes.
So, so these are actually really good. Let's put these in as things for routines.
Hey, and by the way, this whole code is open source, so you guys can fork it, clone it, add your functionality, send us pull requests. We would love to see more functionality there. Do you want to put the link, JP, on the...
Yeah, sure will. So let's get the link up here.
Although you will have to deploy the... can you export the Alexa integration as some kind of JSON that you can import again? I haven't done much with Alexa, so I wonder if you can pre-configure that one.
Yep, we could do this. Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, so yeah, love to get pull requests. Would love to. And in fact, I've got a couple already that we need to go and take a look at. These are from my buddy Corey. He built our ARM templates for deploying the entirety of for deploying all of Thrazman out there. We just need to go and check them. I've also got a bunch of issues in here, which of course none of them are tagged. Some of them probably aren't titled very well, but nonetheless, these are available. These are all pick up from the to-dos.
Did you put the why though yourself?
Well, these get picked up from a to-do. So, in fact, it was down here in the why doesn't this work thing.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, so those were all done by an action. But yeah, the repo is open source. In fact, one of the most important things that I have yet to do, which we will do right now, is we're going to create a new file. It's going to be a license file. It's going to be MIT. And absolutely, yeah, no liability and no warranty. Good. Problem solved. Okay. So no warranty.
Test at your own,
test at
your own peril.
Test at your own risk. Yeah. Don't.
Robert Tables is asking, can Alexa listen to a sound, say like a flipping table, and automatically something's down Friday? Or you swearing at the machine like, how dare you?
Yeah, that would see that.
Okay, I'm starting your stuff there.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I don't know how you could do that. I think it only does voice. But
well, technically, if it does voice, you could encode the sound and send it over.
I guess.
I don't know how you can tell Alexa to decode that on the other end.
You know who we need? Yeah. We need that guy from Police Academy, Michael Winslow, the guy who made all the sound effects with his voice. We need to get him.
Yes.
Okay, so before we wrap up for the day, we've got our list here. So we got to do notifications. We need to wire up our pending and deferral. So this is just going to push out the expiration date. We also need to wire up our deletion. So this is going to do the actual deletion of an object because we don't have that yet. I haven't implemented any of these deferral or deleting methods yet, so we need to go and do that. In fact, that might be the best thing for us to do right now, would be to go get these two wired up so they're ready. Or we could go build more Alexa models. It doesn't really matter. And then our actions for routines. So these two are going to be dependent on deploy a resource group template, right?
Yeah.
So, or starting and stopping specific resources. So this will probably be like a filtered resource set.
You know what I'm going to say now, and it's not going to sound good, but Thrazman doesn't fit that model anymore because we're not thrashing stuff. We're also creating.
We're thrashing the Azure Management API. That's why we're going to call it Thrash. That's why the name works.
Fair enough.
So these are the things we have to do. In fact, let's go create issues for them, and that way, if anybody's particularly bored and wants to contribute, by all means, please come over here and do it. So,
and we still have Hacktoberfest running, right? You have a few more days to do your commits.
Oh my God, Hacktoberfest! What a complete disaster that was this year. So we need to.
They fixed it actually. You have to explicitly opt in as a maintainer now for things to be accepted.
Oh wow! Okay, cool. So we need to wire up pending and deletion, or sorry, let's just do pending as one. Pending to defer the expiration date. Could be arbitrary.
Mm-hmm.
Could be a set amount, e.g. plus 30 days. Put that one in.
Yeah.
Then we need to do our deletion. This one should have a lot of checks to make sure a user, to make sure deletion is, say, enabled, actually what a user wants to do, etc. And then we'll sort of, I'm just going to put one big one in here for like templating and routines. So start, stop, modify, deploy, because those are going to take a while. Deploy templates. Like we need to kind of think of the design of what we want to do there. So I'll just put that one in as one. So let's just very quickly, let's go figure out our pending or deletion. We can do either one. Let's do pending because I don't want to do deletion yet until I'm 100% certain I've got everything we need to make that happen.
Yep.
In fact, since this is running, let's make sure that our new utterances are working too, and that we get the ones that we expect. Alexa, ask Thrazman to nuke it into orbit. Oh wait, I didn't hear me. Alexa,
is it running?
Ask Thrazman to nuke it into orbit.
Deleting your entire Azure subscription. JK Thrazman isn't ready to delete stuff yet.
Okay, good. So that's working. Okay. So good. So that means that all we did was run our code, was just rerun our code with the new code in there, and we're ready to go. I'm getting too old for this. Bobby Tables tells us, starting your dev environment. Yeah. Come downstairs, and my kids are driving me nuts today. It's like, okay, starting up all your VMs and getting you ready to launch into outer space. So let's go look. So in reality, we actually don't have a whole lot of work that we need to do. We can do what's running, or we can do delete resource. So for this one, for what's running, that's really more of a VM question, right? So usually when I'm asking about what's running, I'm asking about VMs. If we think about the things that we can start, stop, delete, pause, etc., primarily the things that you can stop so you can stop billing are VMs. There are other things too, like data warehouse and some of the other resources, but for the most part, resources get the resources that are running that you can stop are VMs. So for the time being, I'm going to do VMs.
Well, you can stop websites.
Yeah, but you still pay. You still pay for them. If you stop a web app, you still pay for it.
Yeah, but it will still be stopped, right? So if you don't want people to have access to a specific website, you can do it.
No, that's true. So it's
not just about cost all the time.
Well, it is for me. At least in the case when it's 9 p.m. and I just put the kids to bed and I come downstairs and I'm like, oh, what's running? I forgot to turn off that VM.
Yes.
So it looks like our resource manager does not have any sort of get resource. Let's see. Do we have anything in our scanner for submitting an arbitrary query? And it looks like we do not. So since we're scanning, maybe it makes sense to go in the scanner because we're already doing a bunch of queries here, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So let's do a new query. And we could just let you do your own, right? Resource search.
Yeah, you can have a generic one. The problem is how are you going to make it generic enough for everyone to use? I think that code would look fairly ugly if you were to make it super generic.
So we could do an expression here. So we're not really looking at resource containers right now. Now we're going to be looking at actual resources. Let's get our Kusto thing up here. Our Kusto query sort of checker, whatever we want to call it. Resource graph. That's the word I was looking for. So here we've got resources. Zoom this in a little bit. Goodness gracious.
Yes, please.
Let's do, it's going to be, let's see, resources where, what is it, type or resource? Let's see. We want to look for Microsoft.compute.
Or you're just doing VMs for now,
Just going to do VMs for now. We can come back to the other one later. To answer AZ Wildfire's question earlier, yes, we can drive snapshots off of here. which might be kind of interesting. So let's see, Microsoft.compute virtual machines. Oops. So we got
like Alexa, run my backup, right? That would be nice.
Yep. So we got our virtual. Oh yeah, that'd be kind of neat. So we got our virtual machines. Let's see. What do we need to have in here? Where the type is.
With so many ideas, I wonder if we're actually building a voice UI on top of the web UI for the portal.
Hey, I'd be okay with that. That'd be kind of fun. Be kind of fun to build.
And we sell it, and we become rich, and then we can retire.
So we don't. Let's see. We don't really want host ID. We may have to do two queries, right? So we're saying where. Oh, sorry. I want status. Where is status?
Where status is running, right?
Yeah, so let's see. Where is that normally? In fact, that might be in a different place. That might not be in compute. That might not be in virtual machines. Can I make this any wider? Looks like I can't. So those are scale sets. Because like
Virtual.
if you were to go,
There's no compute.
well, no, there is compute, so this is like all the metadata about the VM, as in what was provisioned. I don't actually know if the current state will be in here. Power state. Here we go. So resources where type is compute virtual machines. So let's do project the ID, let's see what's here. VM ID, or we'll just do ID. I think that gives us our resource thing. Does it have a name? No.
It doesn't?
No, I don't.
Is it part of the extended properties? I would be surprised if it doesn't have a name.
Computer name. So there's computer name. So that's extended. Oops. I wonder if I just click this. Nice. Okay. So project that.
Nice.
Properties, computer name 0. Okay, let's get that. And then the other thing we're going to want is the display status for power state.
Yep.
So let's get this, and now let's run this and see if we actually get anything back.
What did you get from that? Like, okay, you're running it, so you're doing it where rather than executing query.
Okay, so we've got 8 VMs. It says it says VMD allocated, so that's good. Try to get some of this stuff.
What is null there? Is that the second property, the
computer name?
The computer name.
I kind of want the resource name, really. So how do we get back to the resource name, I wonder? That's size, storage, availability set, app profile, network, OS. Maybe.
I think you clicked something there as a application profile. We don't want that.
Yeah, so let's project. So we've got properties, extended instance view, computer name. Let's not do instance view. Let's do OS profile.
Computer name.
Computer name.
Mm-hmm.
And we want 0. That would be the.
You already had a computer name there.
That would be the name that we gave it when we started it.
Which is the one that you probably want to use to refer to it anyway.
But that doesn't seem to work either. So
damn.
We've got to find the. I guess that means that we need to find.
What computer name? The 0 was the first property there. Okay, see ya.
Yeah, so we need to find. I guess in some ways we need to kind of find the.
Resource name.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. Like, where's the resource name?
Would I think that in the OS profile, that would be the name that you give to your, like the computer name they put inside settings for the OS. So that won't give you the resource name.
Right. And that was extended instance view, right?
Mm-hmm.
And computer name didn't work there.
No, it didn't.
It doesn't work in OS profile because OS profile would be the name you gave the machine when you first created it. But so where in resource graph is a computer's name, or even just the resource's name? I guess because maybe it's not in compute. Maybe it's just on the root.
Hey, what happens if you do resources where type equals virtual machines without projecting and see all the properties that come out?
Yeah, we can do that. I'll just use name for the moment and see. Oh, nope, doesn't like that. Interesting. What doesn't like about that? Name, properties, parser failure. Interesting. Okay. Oh yeah, name. Overthinking it just a little bit. Okay, so we've got our names. That's cool. And we've got our power status. So our statuses would really end up being like VMD allocated, and then I'm not sure what the other ones are. I think there's one on, and there might be off or shut down, and then there's running, shutdown, and VMD allocated, I believe.
I like how you don't check the docs; you just assume.
Well, I'm gonna go check the docs. Thank you very much. All right, so let's look in here. Oh, it's all sorts of good stuff. You can look at VM size, all sorts of interesting things. Oh, good. Look, here's one. List virtual machines with their network interface and public IP, which you don't necessarily need, but is power status in here? power state. So we've got, let's see, there's a power state code. What else? Where else is power state? Looks like we've only got a couple in here. So what are the instance view power states?
Is that we're projecting right now via Kusto?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
So let's see what the here we go. Instance view. This should virtual machine instance view. Power state. Is that in here anywhere? Power state. Okay, so there's one. There's running.
So no, we have allocated, deallocated, and running.
Allocated.
Maybe stopped as well.
Allocated, deallocated, and running. Where did you see allocated? Oh wait, here we go. So there's starting. Running, and that shows power state running. Stopping. Nice. Stopped. Deallocating and deallocated. Okay. Now these don't. So let's see. Display status. VM deallocated. So these are all prepended with VM. VM deallocating. VM stop. Okay, cool. So that's easy enough. Put this.
And for people maybe wondering what these three states are, running and stopped obviously show the state of the VM, how it is. But if it's stopped, you're still paying for it, right? Whereas if you deallocate it, you only pay for the storage, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah.
So for stopped, you still pay for the OS license, I think. But if you deallocate it, then you only pay for the storage.
Yeah. So if you that's right. If you deallocate a VM, you lose the IP address that's associated with it, unless you pay for static IP. But you do not pay for the compute. You don't pay for the VM itself. What you do pay for is the disks all the time. So if you're storing a disk or if you're using a managed disk, you are always paying for that.
Exactly.
Okay. I need to get the resource group out of these things too. So is that a property?
Group. Must be a group something.
Well, like you,
because you need to provide it when you create the VM. I suspect that you probably get it back as part of its properties, right?
It's called resource group.
There you go.
So we need to get the ID. We'll get the resource group. Let's get the subscription ID too, just so there's no question. Subscription ID.
Well, our service principal only runs on one subscription for now, right?
Yeah, but remember, locally it uses your credentials, so we don't want to. Yes. We don't want to end up in that spot. The other thing maybe is we could even look at the tags, right? So we could show the tag of who the owner. Well, let's not worry about that for the moment. Okay. So this is our query, right? And it looks like instead of doing it with this sort of indexer notation, we can use this.
Oh, very nice.
Let's make sure that that's correct before we leave here.
You have one closing. Yeah.
Okay, good. So this is our query. So var running VMs query is that.
Oh, Han, our friend from Europe, got his stickers.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, if anybody's interested in stickers for the show, send us a note, drop us a note on Twitter, or send us an email. We will put the email address out in the chat. Send us a note. Feel free to drop us a line and let us know that you want some stickers or whatever, and we will we'll send you some.
Yeah, you need to make sure you follow the 45 show, not just the Microsoft Developer Show. So the 45 show on Twitch. Follow us there, and then we will get you your stickers.
Yep. So, yeah. Okay.
And have a great weekend, our friends.
Yep. All right. So we got our query in here. For some reason, it doesn't seem like. Oh, you know what? I think they switched the order of these in C#9, but it is not yet available in C#8. So that's okay. So we've got, we'll put our type up here just for the sake of simplicity. So we're going to find all VMs that, with their display status. I'll just put another carriage return here to keep it simple. And we want only those which are running, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's see, return await query resource graph with our running VMs query. Now, what's going to be interesting is for most of these, we're only pulling back this. We're pulling back the same properties. We're going to have to update which properties we're pulling back. Although the name may actually be sufficient because we want the name of the VM, right? But we also want to send some other data. We're going to want to send back the name and a couple other things. So, yeah, so we gotta get that in here too. Is we need to update the return types with more arbitrary data. So that if nothing else, at least the caller can determine and say, oh yeah, I know I need this extra field, and so we're going to use that extra field. That might be what our
generic query
generic
does.
Is going to look like. Find specific resources of T string expression. Because right now we're not even using the expression in here.
Correct.
So maybe what we'll end up with is a func of
resource search result.
Well, it wouldn't be resource search result because resource search result is already our type.
Okay.
Oh yeah, so we're doing. Maybe what we'll do is extend resource search result to also include maybe sort of an IEnumerable of key value pair. I guess we could also just do a dictionary, but they could be different too. Although that could be whatever. And we'll call this extra data.
By the way, we have 5 minutes to wrap it up, so
maybe
start thinking about how one to close.
Yeah, let's get into this. We'll get into this next week. So, so anyway, the code is up on GitHub. I will make sure our newest changes get out there today. Feel free to go and toss some stuff in if you're bored or particularly interested in what we're working on. Feel free to go out and help us out. I'm going to go ahead and we'll add this to GitHub. Make sure that the latest code gets out there today. We'll be back on Monday. What are we going to do on Monday, Christos?
I think on Monday. Do we want to do the Vue stuff on Monday?
Yeah.
Vue.js with Azure AD?
Yeah, so...
if you guys are into Vue 3, we're seeing how we can integrate Azure AD into Vue, so we can have a sign-in, sign-out. We'll do AD, but we can do B2C if you guys want to do that more. And then I was thinking about adding some Azure goodness there, so Azure Storage, to pull and display some containers inside our stuff. So we bring 3 things there. We bring Vue, JS, which is fairly new to me and us. We're bringing Azure AD, and we're bringing some storage through the Azure SDK. So that's going to be a fun experiment.
Yeah, so if you're interested in Vue and in front end and JS, then yeah, Monday we'll do that for a little bit. And if anything comes up between now and then, let us know. I hope you all have a great weekend, and we will see you on the other side.
Yes. Hey, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to follow us on the 4 to 5 show. And it was great having you this morning, or afternoon, or evening, whatever it is. Some people had us on the big screen, which is exciting. And we look forward to seeing you on Monday. Thank you.
See you, everybody.
See ya.